if you've been trying to eat really healthy lately, but you've been struggling with hitting your protein goals, just keep watching this video and I'm gonna go through exactly how you can approach hitting enough protein per day for your goals while still eating really healthy food. And so I'm not gonna tell you to, for example, not use protein powder because there's nothing inherently wrong with protein powder, especially if you don't get it with a lot of additives, a lot of artificial sweeteners, um, and other stuff they do add in protein powders. Like let's say you got like a unflavored protein powder that didn't have any artificial flavorings, and it didn't have any other stuff that might other powders might have. Then there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's a supplement to get you to your protein goals. But the thing is, processed foods, even like protein powder, is considered processed food because they're stripping the protein, the whey protein, from the milk or from other protein sources in order to get you a really concentrated protein source, right? But since it's processed, then they strip their micronutrients, so you're the vitamins, other minerals that might exist in the whole foods. And so the aim is to eat as much of whole foods as possible because they contain other things other than the macronutrients. So they have all the minerals, the vitamins, and other things that you need for your body to function optimally. And then you have other things of like, if you want to get omega 3s for brain function, if you want to get fiber, again, just for the satiation and so you don't overeat, stuff like that is going to contribute to your overall health. And so there's kind of different groups of people that kind of we have to consider when we're talking about getting enough protein. Let's say you're someone who doesn't really care about building muscle, right? And so you just want to stay healthy, be healthy, and then you might want to either like lose weight, so primarily going to be fat, or you might want to gain weight, right? Or might want to just maintain. And so if you only care about keeping your muscle, you don't want to grow it, then overall the target for you would be kind of 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight, right? Again, because I'm sure a lot of you have heard the 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and so if you're 200 pounds, you need 200 grams of protein a day, which is kind of a lot for most people, right? I'm sure most people, like on average, if they're looking at a society in general, probably get like 80 to maybe 100 grams of protein max, but the average is probably like around 70, 80 grams of protein a day. But again, if you're just trying to maintain your mass, especially if you're like your calories are also at maintenance, getting 0.6 grams is enough. And so if you're 200 pounds, that's about 120 grams of protein, which is a lot more feasible, right? And so, yeah, that's pretty much all you need. And so, to be honest, that shouldn't be much of a struggle, even if you're eating whole foods, right? And so, even if you don't have any protein bars, any protein shakes, something like that, it shouldn't be that hard, especially if you're getting animal sources. Let's say you're vegetarian, then it might be harder. Then you might want to consider supplements, or you might really want to do a lot of like lentils, a lot of peas, a lot of tofu, which again, not all of them are complete sources of protein. And so you want to make sure you're getting most of your protein from complete sources. And so most complete sources are going to be your animal sources. So your chicken, your beef, like any type of red meat, even turkey, like pretty much any meat that comes from animals, or even dairy as well, is going to be a complete source of protein. Meaning it has like the right proportions of the amino acids that you'll need to build muscle, and also do other functions in your body, right? And I think if you're looking at plant-based sources, then like peas are good from what I believe. Tofu might be fine as well, and then there's not that many other sources. And so even if you go to like the Beyond Meat options, a lot of them are gonna include like additional ingredients that you might not want to have in your body. And so just it definitely takes more effort, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. But I'm considering that most people watching this are going to be eating animal sources of protein. And so hitting 120 grams of protein as a 200-pound person, let's say you're going to be, if you're 200 pounds, you're probably going to be eating around like close to like between 2,500 and 3,000, depending on how active you are. Like getting, if you split it in 3 meals, that's 40 grams of protein a meal. It's really not that bad. Like I think a chicken breast on its own is like around 40 grams of protein, if I'm right. Again, depending on the size of the chicken breast. And so, just making easy swaps of like having more eggs in the morning, having some sort of dairy like milk, yogurt, cheese, having a good portion of animal meat for your lunch, stuff like that. You shouldn't really need protein powder, right? And you'll still have enough calories to like get enough protein. Now let's say you're not really stressed about gaining muscle. You just want to keep your muscle, but you're in a fat loss phase, right? And so let's say you're 200 pounds, but now you're eating like 2,000 calories or something because you're trying to lose weight, right? You don't want to lose because weight loss and fat loss isn't really the same. Because weight loss could be anything. It could be fat, could be muscle, could be water weight, right? It could be from a lot of different sources. Like there's a lot of different things that make up the weight in your body. Ideally, you want to lose just the fat because you want to keep the muscle. It's going to keep you healthy and it's going to make you live longer. And it's going to make you look better, right? Of course. And so, if you want to make most of it through fat and not through muscle, obviously, like there's other things apart from diet. So like sleeping well, training, some sort of resistance training to at least maintain the muscle. But let's say you did nothing with that and you only wanted to focus on nutrition. You have to increase your protein just a little bit. And so ideally, you'd want to increase it to about like 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, right? Just because since you have less calories to work with to keep your body functioning, like some of the protein will be used as energy sources as well. Because ideally, when you have an abundant amount of calories, then your body will go to your preferred sources of energy. And so it's going to be carbohydrates, and next will be fats, right? But once your calories are lower, there's less of those carbohydrates and your fats that your body can use for the energy. And so it is going to tap into some of the protein. And so just by increasing it just a little bit is kind of like you're making sure that you still have enough protein to keep maintaining your muscle mass. But again, once the deficit gets too steep, you will lose some sort of muscle. And so I wouldn't recommend, again, going over a 500 calorie deficit per day because you don't want to end up at the end of a fat or like a weight loss phase just looking like you used to look before, just a bit smaller, because that means that you've lost muscle and fat. Whereas if you lost just fat, you just look more shredded. You keep the same size, but you look leaner, right? So that's the goal. And again, I really recommend weightlifting, like giving your body a reason to keep the muscle, right? Because if it knows that you're going to be lifting heavy weight and challenging yourself, it knows that it needs to keep the muscle in order to do that. But if you're not giving it any reason, if you're just walking, and other than that, not doing much else, again, your body's not going to feel the need to keep the same amount of muscle. Now, let's say you're, and again, but if that turned to like a weight gain phase, you want to gain weight, then you actually can still keep it at 0.6 grams of protein per body weight because, again, your body has enough carbohydrates and fats to use as energy sources, so it's barely going to tap into the protein as an energy source, and so now you can use pretty much all that protein for muscle protein synthesis. Now, let's say you're someone who wants to gain muscle mass, right? At maintenance, you might already want to be close to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And so 0.8 grams, that's around 160 grams of protein for a 200-pound person. Again, because you really want to make sure that you're reaching the optimal amount of protein. Like you kind of want to reach the 100% potential of like how much you can build per day. And of course, you're probably going to be doing some sort of resistance training if you're trying to build muscle. If you're in a surplus, then that can be a bit lower than 0.8, but it's still recommended 0.6 or above. Now, if you're in a fat loss phase and you really want to make sure you're losing only fat and like minimal amount of muscle, right? You want to go up to probably 1 gram per pound of body weight. So that's where it's going to be 200 grams of protein per day. Again, depending on the deficit, and let's say you're a very shallow deficit of like 200, 300 calories a day, then it doesn't necessarily have to be the 1 gram per pound of body weight. But if you're going like 500 calories or more, you really want to make sure you're hitting that target, and then obviously making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure your training is hard enough. Again, your body needs the adaptation of like needing to keep the muscle on your body. And so that's pretty much all the amounts that you need to like to hit the specific goals, depending on who you are. Now, again, how do I get enough protein per day? And I eat about 200 grams per pound of body weight, and I'm 200 pounds, and I eat 200 grams of protein a day, right? And so I'm eating about the 1 gram per pound of body weight. But I do that kind of like regardless on most days, right? Some days it'll be less, like 170 grams, sometimes like 160 grams, which is 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, which is still good. But I do hit those goals no matter if I'm like losing weight, maintaining weight, and even when I gain weight. Although like I don't have to stick to that as much, but that's just because protein is also filling. I do tend to have just like a big appetite, right? Because I lift weights, I hit around like 10,000 steps a day, and so my hunger does ramp up. Like on the days that I don't move and I don't do anything, I kind of don't get that hungry. But when I move a lot, I do tend to have a bigger appetite. And so getting enough protein is not just keeping my muscle on my body, but it's also just making me more full, more satiated. But that's just because your body spends the most amount of energy to digest protein. And so your protein stays in your stomach or in your digestive system the longest, and also has like a thermic effect. Your body spends the most amount of calories burning protein. And so let's say if I ate 100 calories consisting of just protein versus 100 calories consisting of just carbs and fats, the net amount of calories I'm going to deposit in my body is going to be less, although not a significant amount. It does add up to like when you're eating meals and meals for like days, right? It does add up to be somewhat of like a noticeable amount, although it's not going to make or break your diet. But overall, I do it for the satiating effect. And that's for the other things. That's why like I try to get more fiber in rather than just like simple carbohydrates. And I try to have a good amount of fats, because all those things will signal my body to lower down my hunger signals and just keep me full for longer. Because I do tend to just want to eat more than my body can burn. Whereas some people, they struggle to actually eat enough calories to maintain their weight or like gain weight. And so if you're someone who struggles to lose weight or maintain the weight, like they tend to gain more weight than normal, then my advice is just to lower or shorten your eating cycle, right? And so let's say you wake up at 8 a.m. and then in order to get 8 hours of sleep, you sleep at midnight. Or let's say you sleep at 10 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., right? So that's 8 hours of sleep and you're awake for 16 hours of the day. If you were to eat as soon as you woke up at 6 a.m., then your body would send hunger signals across the whole day, which makes it harder for you to stay in a deficit or stay at maintenance and not go in a surplus, right? And so delaying your breakfast by a few hours, let's say start delaying, if you regularly eat like when you wake up, delay it by 2 hours. And so instead of eating breakfast at 6 a.m., eat at 8 a.m., right? And in order to keep the satiating effect, have a good amount of protein in the morning. Don't have a lot of carbs, unless you're training early in the morning as well and you feel like you do need the carbs to train, which obviously they will make your training better. But again, don't try to have a lot of simple carbohydrates, because they're going to increase your blood sugar, which in turn will increase your insulin signals. And then it's just going to cause your blood sugar to crash later, which is going to cause you to get those cravings of getting more carbohydrates. Whereas if you had a bit of simple sugars and mostly protein, a good amount of fats, because fats also do make you feel satiated. And so a great source would be like eggs, because it's a good balance of protein and fats. Or like a ground beef that's not super lean, right? Because we do still want some sort of fat. And so going like a 96.4 beef is fine. You're still getting protein, but you still do want to get enough fats during your day. You don't want to have anything less than 50 grams of fats per day, because it's going to tank your testosterone, it's going to tank your other hormones as well, which are going to make you just feel tired, and obviously that's not good. And so like eggs, excellent choice. I have those every single morning. And then for your carbs, you could have like some sort of like simple sugar. So you can have like honey, you can have banana, dates. All those are great before workouts. And then you can also pair it with like a complex carb. And so something like oats is a complex carbohydrate, has more fiber, and so it's going to take longer for your body to digest. And so the increase in your blood sugar won't be as high, and so that means the crash won't be as bad, right? And the goal of eating whole foods is just keeping sustained energy throughout the day. But let's say you don't train in the morning and you don't feel the need of having carbs, or you just feel fine. You could just have a meal of just protein and fats. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because I do notice with myself and other people that I talk to about nutrition and that I give advice to, is that they really prefer having a lot of carbs and fats later at night, right? Like having like a good amount of ice cream, or just having a yogurt bowl or bowl of oats before, or like potatoes, like starchy carbohydrates, pasta, stuff like that. Having that before, like as your last meal or like at lunch, it's just gonna like kind of curb your cravings. And it's also kind of important to make you feel relaxed and kind of ready to go to sleep. And because when you have a lot of carbohydrates, your body releases serotonin, which is a molecule that kind of gets you in a good mood. And serotonin is actually a precursor to like a neurotransmitter or a hormone called melatonin, which is what makes you feel sleepy. And so having a good amount of carbs and fats later at night could actually be helpful if you do benefit from that. But all of that will be kind of trial and error, seeing what works, what doesn't work. But I'm kind of speaking on like my experience with most people. And so again, having proteins and fats in the morning, and then later on at lunch, again, always having a protein dense meal, because again, it keeps you full and it's easier for you to hit your protein target. And so lunch could be chicken breast, chicken thighs, beef, whatever it is, with a side of like vegetables for the fiber, or like potatoes for starches. You can even have rice, nothing wrong with that. That's a good lunch. And then dinner, if you want to have dinner, or you could just have like for dinner, what I have is just like a yogurt bowl. Like I'll have yogurt, I'll have some berries. I might have like a bowl of oats as well, because again, having those carbs is going to be nice. Having some peanut butter on top of my yogurt as well, just because it tastes good, curbs my cravings, and because it has healthy fats as well. And so, again, and then as you've adapted to that, and then maybe to the point where like you start getting hungry now, just shorten your eating window again. So instead of breaking your fast at 8 a.m., push it to 10 a.m., right? And so now you'll have like 10 a.m. Let's say you sleep at 10, maybe you stop eating at like 8 or 7, because ideally you want to leave 3 hours of not eating before bed, but try to have at least 2. So even if you stop eating at 8, that's fine. And so 10 to 8, that's a 10-hour eating window. And then again, you've probably heard intermittent fasting where like you only eat for like, most people do it for like 8 hours. And so that means 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's like your eating window. And then the more you shorten it and to the extreme where you go to like 1 meal a day, it's very hard to overeat your calories, right? Because you can't really eat 3,000 calories in 1 hour. It's kind of hard. It's doable, but it's more difficult than spreading it out throughout the day. I'm not saying you should do 1 meal a day because you might just crash early in the morning, especially if you're training in the morning as well. But yeah, like a 8-hour cycle for most people could be helpful, right? Especially if you feel like you always overeat, you snack a lot. Having a smaller window is going to reduce the snacking to where you only have like a few meals of the day. Now, let's say you're at a point where you actually you struggle to gain weight, right? Then I would say the opposite. Just kind of spread your eating cycle as far as you need, right? And so obviously don't try to eat just before sleeping because it's going to mess up your sleep, it's going to mess up your recovery, and it's just going to mess up everything else. And so you could, if you really need to, you could start eating at 6 a.m., right? Start eating at 6 a.m. all the way until 8 p.m. if that gives you the best chances of getting enough calories and also getting enough protein, right? Now, if you're trying to gain weight, then you have a lot of calories to work with, so you shouldn't necessarily need to supplement as well with protein powder or anything else, because again, you have so many calories to work with. Now, with this one, I'd say is since you have a lot of calories, then you could use the extra fats and the extra simple sugars as well, right? And you don't have to go as high with protein as well. If you really feel like protein fills you up, you could stick to just 0.6 grams of protein, right, per pound of body weight. And so if you're 200 pounds, that's only 120 grams of protein, right? Which is, again, not that much, right? If you have like 6 eggs in the morning, 2 chicken breasts at lunch, and then like some yogurt at night, that's probably over 120 grams right there. And so, again, just eat as early as you need to, right? Some people might not have an appetite at 6 a.m., so it doesn't need to be a heavy meal. But again, if you get enough calories and you don't have to eat that early, then you don't have to. But yeah, just having a lot of simple sugars, and let's say you start your morning with like banana and just a lot of honey, and put it on like some sourdough bread, or I don't know, eat a lot of rice. It's simple sugars as well, so just put extra rice on your lunch plate. You can have more potatoes. You can have your yogurt. It could be like full fat yogurt, or if you'll have full fat milk. You can use a lot of nut butter, so like peanut butter, almond butter. They all taste amazing. You can even just use like higher calorie dense fruits. So you can have your bananas, your dates, mangoes as well are a bit more calorie dense. But it's doable with even with whole foods. If you just like don't go crazy on the fiber because it's gonna make you full, and just go higher on the fats, right? Obviously, don't go super high to the point where like you're gonna get like a cardiovascular disease or something. But again, olive oil, easy way to get calories. Just cook your chicken or your protein in olive oil. Put butter in your rice. Put a lot of butter in your eggs. The calories all add up, right? You don't have to go super high protein. If you like eating the protein, then you could go 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But I'd say go high on the carbs, go high on the fats. As long as you you're active, you move a lot, you train a lot, the carbs will help you do all that. And so that's kind of like how I'd approach it, um, depending on what type of person you are and where your goals are. And so, again, if it was helpful, just make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay healthy.